everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gita Marie and I thought summer is coming up and a lot of people are planning vacations, which is in and of itself, it's fine. We love to see it. But there are so many things that we do today as consumers, as tourists traveling, that can definitely be improved on, that can become more sustainable and also quite easily. So I want to share some tools so when you travel, you can do it as sustainably as possible. But before we get started, this video is sponsored. This video is sponsored by Tingly. Tingly is an experience-based gift platform where you can find gifts to your friends, loved ones, or for yourself, I don't judge. Pick a gift box based on your budget, your location, or the occasion. Tingly gifts can be used in more than 100 countries around the world. Then they deliver an e-voucher or a physical box, and the recipient then decides which experience to choose. And I've been talking about experience gifts for the longest time. I think it's one of the easiest ways to do something sustainably without imposing your values on your friends and family. I'm gonna get you an experience gift like a museum tour, a guided tour around the city, a food cooking workshop, any of the sort. It has never missed. So I really appreciate Tingly reaching out to me so we can talk about this more. They also sent me on one of their experiences. It was in Copenhagen, it was a boat tour, and it was an absolute blast. I had so much fun. I also learned a couple of new facts about my own capital. If you want to learn more about Tingly, you can find all the information in the description down below. Now, let's talk about how we can improve the impact of our holiday. Generally speaking, we tend to use more resources when we're traveling compared to when we're at home because it's not our electrical bill, it's not our water bill. So we use resources differently and we don't really think about that all too much. However, we really should, because a lot of very popular tourist destinations often has an asymmetrical distribution of resources, which means that local communities do not have access to the same amount of resources as tourists. This is a very wide problem in terms of tourism, where all the resources are diverted away from the local communities and into resorts and hotels. We also tend to generate more food waste when we're on holiday. And one of the main things I feel like is the reason for this is the fact that a lot of tourists tend to go for buffet options for their lunches and dinners. Especially so if you live in hotels or all-inclusive resorts, and any kind of buffet option will inherently have more food waste. And that's both on the hotel as well as on the tourists. In a buffet scenario, we also tend to get a bit greedy and take more food than we can actually eat, and then we just discard of it, we throw it away, it doesn't matter. And that kind of doesn't fly. Food waste is a huge problem. I feel like the mentality of act like you're paying for it is good to apply here. And also just be cool. Of course you can participate in the buffet in a sustainable way by only taking the food that you need, but it's even better to choose options that are portion sized rather than buffet based. One thing that I have heard both with my own 2 ears and seen people advise others when traveling is that pack a light suitcase with your necessities and then buy clothes when you get there. And then you can just throw the clothes away because at your destination the clothes is going to be so cheap, you can just throw it away and then you have more room for souvenirs. Buying anything simply just to throw it away is not great, but the resources that go into producing cheap clothing is massive. So buying clothes to throw it away is obviously not the vibe. If you see this advice, run the other way. Using the hand soap at the hotel, you can simply just wash your clothes in the sink and let them dry overnight. And packing versatile layers that you can use for multiple different outfits, also definitely a lifesaver. Clothes are reusable, we should not treat them like disposable, no! One of my favorite things to do when going to a new place is experiencing the local environment and nature. I think this is an absolutely amazing thing, going on hikes, tours. When you go into nature as a tourist, it's also very important to be mindful of how you act in that environment. Treat it with respect, stick to paths that are already there. Don't break down flower beds, break branches. Treat the environment with utmost respect and leave no trace behind. Obviously, I'm not gonna sit here in a video on a sustainability channel and tell you guys not to litter because I feel like that is so self-explanatory, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. And bring your trash. Because like what? This is one of the things that I have struggled the most with when I travel for longer periods of time, and it's the fact that you probably don't have a kitchen. You might have a little tea kitchen, but you probably don't have like an oven, a stove, any of the sort. Which means that you often end up relying on more convenience-based foods, ready meals, that kind of thing. If you don't go out to eat every single day, I was recently away for 2 weeks and I was not about to spend money going out to restaurants every single day. That will ruin me. So the easiest thing to grab are these ready meals in plastic packaging. There are also other options. There's often a kettle in a hotel room, which gives you a little bit of an elbow room. I like to pack a little lunch. Often it's even advised or recommended. And then I have that meal as well. So I don't have to buy so many convenience products and ready meals. And this is kind of a continuation of that. But if you bring essential reusables, it becomes a lot easier to avoid a lot of plastic. If you bring a container, either for leftovers, a little lunchbox, something like that, bring reusable cutlery, bring a little mug or a water bottle, any kind of easy to transport reusables. Some of these you can just have in your normal handbag or in your luggage, and they don't really take up space and they're not heavy. And this is a lifesaver. This means that you can save a lot of waste by getting things in your own container or bringing the leftovers in a reusable box from restaurants. And stuff like this really makes my day. Any win is a win. There's really no way around the fact that the majority of the impact that comes from tourism and our holiday is transportation, specifically because of airplanes and cruise ships. These two make up quite a bit of the impact that comes from tourism. If there's any way to avoid them, if there's any way to make the train travel part of your journey, do so. I really recommend the scenic routes. Going through the landscape in a train is absolutely beautiful and breathtaking. Many places this is actually an option and I always recommend it, especially so if you're traveling in a group. This is not only sustainability, this is also about respecting the spaces of the people that actually live at your destination. So listen to locals. If locals are trying to bring attention to the fact that the areas that they live in are overcrowded with tourists and really affected by over-tourism, pick another destination. If they're saying collectively, we can't handle more tourists, we would prefer that you stayed away, we would prefer that you did something else, listen to that. I don't think it's anyone's God-given right to see a specific place, especially not so if that place is so crowded and completely worn down by tourists that it isn't even the same experience as it once was. Then I think it's our responsibility as the privileged tourists to pick a destination that doesn't have these issues, both for our own experience, but more so because the environment simply in many places can't handle it. And we're also seeing tourist bans in more and more places where the environment and the natural surroundings are suffering so heavily from the tourism. So listen to locals. If they're saying they don't want you around, don't take it personal. They're just trying to live their life there. If you want to buy souvenirs, there are more sustainable ways of going about it. So going to regular chain stores that are only selling merch and souvenirs, those souvenirs are most likely mass produced in China, Bangladesh, in a sweatshop, and they don't really support the local community. If you want to get a souvenir back home, support a local artist, a local musician, any local community or small independent shop. Find something in an antique store, at a farmer's market, at a flea market, in a thrift shop. Buy something you will wear or use for years and years to come, rather than something that just feels really funny because you're there right now. If you are visiting churches or temples of any religion, be respectful. This is not a sustainability thing, it's about being a decent person, but so much of sustainable practices and habits are also about being a mindful, conscious person, and that also comes with treating other people and other cultures with respect. So if you're in a church or a temple, act accordingly. Don't fool around, don't be silly, don't talk loudly, don't take pictures with flash on it. Don't do anything you wouldn't want people to do in your church or in places that matter to you. Be respectful, quiet, experience it, take it in, without being disrespectful. That's all. And this is kind of in the same lane, but don't treat anything you see on your holiday, on your vacation, as a gimmick, attraction, something that exists for the mere pleasure of you as a tourist. Some people live their entire life at what is your tourist destination, and their culture is different, their customs are different, their habits are different, their food is different. I don't know where you're going, but most likely it is. All of these differences are not there for you to enjoy or experience. It's there for the people that live there. So treating anything like a gimmick gives me kind of an ick. Treating everything you see that is different from your hometown like a tourist attraction kind of gives me the ick. And that includes being silly with local food, spitting it out, thinking it's gross, talking about the fact that local food is gross, looking at people in impoverished communities as something that's a little bit exciting and exotic, all these things. I feel like going to a place with this specific mentality of I'm not going to treat everything I see like a tourist attraction that is only there for my pleasure and enjoyment is a really good step in the right direction. Back to being a little bit more practical, but if you have a small fridge in your hotel room, and you often do, it's often the minibar, sometimes there's something in it, sometimes there isn't, but even if there's something in the minibar, you can still use the excess space to keep your own food cool, which means that you can buy food from the local farmer's market, you can make sandwiches in the morning, you can prep food in your room for lunch. Using that fridge has been a lifesaver on my end so many times, which has meant that I've been able to get food with less packaging instead of relying only on convenience foods and buying foods in restaurants. Also very practical, but learn about local recycling. If you know what can and cannot be recycled at your destination, you can also act accordingly. It means that you know what kind of materials to shy away from because they can't be recycled, and which materials you can use with a little bit more ease of mind. Obviously, recycling is a good place to start, but a bad place to stop. But simply knowing what can be recycled and what it takes to be recycled at a certain place, knowing where to put it, and sort of what the customs are in terms of the recycling is a really good step. It means that you can be a little bit more mindful with the materials that you use. Sometimes hotel rooms do not have recycling in the room, which is deeply frustrating. I recommend, if you don't see any recycling in the hotel room, to either ask at the reception or ask locals where they recycle, if there is a public bin where you can sort your trash on the way to your next destination, attraction, morning walk, morning run, whatever you do. I don't think I've ever made a video about sustainable travel without recommending Happy Cow. Happy Cow is an app where you can see all vegan, plant-based, vegetarian, flexitarian meals or food options. It makes it so much easier to find the good options. You can also see the pictures of the food, so you don't end up making mistakes or going someplace where the food is super disappointing. At least with Happy Cow, you have a little bit more information about the food before you go. There are also reviews made by people with the same dietary preferences as you have. I think that's really helpful. And even if you're not a vegan or vegetarian, choosing plant-based meals is a really good way to reduce your impact. And it doesn't have to be every time and all the time, but especially so when going on vacation, why not try something new, and why not try to indulge in those cuisines as well. I also recommend taking public transportation, buses, trains, etc., rather than taxis. This is controversial. I realize that I might end up starting something here. So a really good alternative both to buses and taxis are bikes. I really recommend renting a bike and biking around everywhere in the city that you're in. However, I don't recommend you do this if you don't know how to ride a bike. Not that you physically don't know how to ride a bike, but if you don't know the local law regarding bicycling, I recommend that you don't. A lot of people in Denmark use bikes every single day, and I can tell you from personal experience, there's nothing worse than just trying to get to work and everyone in the bike lane is delayed because a group of tourists are trying to figure out what the rules are for bikes. It's so incredibly frustrating. I see people in Denmark, especially tourists on like the rented bikes, biking on the pavement. That's illegal, driving in the wrong direction, just like complete chaos. If you can follow the pace of the local population on their bikes, I definitely recommend. But if you don't know the rules and the laws regarding bicycling, I really recommend that you don't do it. It slows other people down, it's really inconvenient, and it's also really unsafe for you, and you might also end up with a fee. You can also choose more sustainable options for sightseeing and generally existing as a tourist. There is a certification that you can look for as well. It's the Green Key. Now, it is a little bit wide, it's broad, but it's a good start. And actually the boat tour I went on was with an electric boat rather than a petrol boat, which is often the conventional option. So going for an electric tour rather than petrol, cool. Especially so if a lot of the power in the power grid actually comes from renewable energy sources. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but choose experiences over things. Maybe it's not so important to bring back tons of souvenirs to be able to remember your trip. At least I would recommend, because this is what feels the best option for me, but like you can do whatever you want obviously, but I feel like I would much rather spend my money on museum tours, on restaurants, on experiences, rather than on things to take back home. I would much rather use the money to see as much as possible and to experience as many things as possible. And that's also, coincidentally, more sustainable. If you have a hotel room, opt for less cleaning. You can either put the little don't disturb on the door, but you can also remove all your towels from the floor. A lot of times the cleaning staff will take anything on the floor and they will replace it with new options. But if you keep them on the racks or like on the sink, whatever, they won't. And you don't need cleaning every single day. You don't clean your home every single day, typically. So you don't need it when you're on vacation either. And it takes a lot of resources to re-wash the same towels over and over again. You can easily use the same towel throughout your entire vacation. Easily. And this is once again a personal preference, so you can take it or leave it. But whenever I'm at a new place, I don't want to go to the same global chain restaurants as I can when I'm back home. I want to experience independent shops, independent restaurants. I can go to the same fast food chains and the same restaurant chains all across the globe. Actually, when you travel, you don't have to try anything new ever because you can get the same no matter where you are in the world, and I think that is intensely depressing. Also, a lot of these big corporations that have these chain stores, they don't really pay a lot of taxes anywhere they are in the world. So when you eat in these restaurants, there are very few resources going back into the local community. Instead, I think it's better to support the small businesses that are battling these corporations. Abso-fucking-lutely. That's it for this video. Let me know if you are arranging any vacation this summer and where you're going, and if you have thought sustainability into your traveling strategy. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts and experiences and what you guys are planning. I'm going to Roskilde Festival again and I'm so excited. I'll also do more sustainable festival content. It's on its way for sure. Also, a big thank you to our sponsor Tinkly today. Have an amazing day and take really good care of yourselves. Until next time. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green, zero-waste content and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!